Hi everyone, I'm Corey Philly. I'm the Executive Director of the Vancouver Fringe Festival, which is running September 8th to 18th on Granville Island and surround, and I'm very happy to be here today. I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. It is an honor to live, work, podcast Fringe on these territories. I've just got a couple of announcements. Like, we are on Friday. We've got three more days. So we've got a full day today and 2 very full days on Saturday and Sunday to see shows. So please go to vancouverfringe.com. You want to be here. You want to take part. We've got so many great things that are still happening. I personally am going to go see a whole bunch of things. I was in grant writing hell for this week, so I only could see a bit. And so I want to make sure that I actually catch some more shows. I had a whole thing that I was going to do the whole group of humans, but sadly, government bureaucracy and funders got in my way. But I know that I'm going to be able to see a whole bunch of things today. There are 2 or 3 things I'd like to have a shout out about. So tomorrow, we are going to do, it's a fundraiser for the Fringe. It's at Performance Works. It's called Family Reunion, Cabaret of Bullshit, and by the inimitable Jem Rolls, who's going to come and talk to me tomorrow morning, also on the podcast. I would say take a look. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of outrageous. It's all the Fringe artists participating, and all the proceeds go towards assisting Fringe to actually help more artists. So that's very cool, and we're very excited about that. Also, you can still become a donor. Every single donation goes to helping artists in their work, in their development, help us pay for venues and production staff and all those things that make the Fringe what it is. We're also kind of expanding this year, so we're going to be doing 3 presentations of different Fringe shows through the year. So all of that helps us help the artists, and that's really why we're here and why we're doing this. And finally, on a personal note, in the office, we had a bit of a hard day yesterday. Our beautiful marketing and communications manager, Matt Ostrahan, who just got here January from the UK, was riding his bike home on Wednesday night and he got hit by a car. He is going to be fine, but he does have some injuries that need to look after, and he's likely to be in the hospital for about 10 days while all that happens. We're so thankful that there wasn't more serious injuries and that he will recover fully. But in the meantime, his bike was totaled, his phone was totaled, and so we are going to do a GoFundMe fundraiser on vancouverfringe.com. So if you can, it would be lovely, any kind of contribution. But of course, well wishes are also, I'm happy to pass them on to Matt. He's just been a delight. I love him entirely. And it's really been a hard about 24 hours, but he is going to be fine. And that's why I missed the podcast yesterday, because I was actually at the hospital with him. But he is a really good egg. And he was one that was responsible for all the new graphics with also Aman Nathur, who was our UBC co-op student this year. So we really owe a lot to Matt and his foresight and his vision and his energy for this Fringe. Okay, off of that topic. We're very excited again. Here we are. We're with a beautiful Fringe artist whose work I'm really interested to see. I haven't seen it yet, but would you mind introducing yourself?
For sure. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm Majid, and I'm an actor, writer, producer, director.
Oh gosh, everything.
I've got the show Love at 752 this year, and I'm so glad, so happy to have this conversation with Corey today.
Oh, I'm so happy that you're here, Majid. It's always lovely when people are willing to come and talk to me, especially after they may have seen me in action, especially. So thank you.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you mind? I always start with this question.
Yeah.
Do you mind me asking what city you were born in?
Of course. I was born in Tehran, Iran. And I came here. I moved to Vancouver 4 years ago, directly from Tehran.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, and I've been here for 4 years, and I remember 2019. I started working in Fringe as a volunteer.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and I worked for 2 years, as volunteer in Fringe. And it was so good, and I had a great experience. And I was like, okay, next year I'm gonna have my own show.
Oh.
And I did my first show in Canada, actually.
Really?
Yeah. And it was called Truth or Dare last year. We had the show at a picnic pavilion.
Oh, you did? Well, of course, yeah. A whole bunch of people had some like outdoor shows, right? Because of the COVID restrictions.
Yeah,
and stuff.
exactly. It was kind of site specific. Was really not disorganized, but not really good, as well as this year.
Well, we will take that. We will take that completely. By the way, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Honestly, yeah. But it was a good show though. It was a great experience for me to have my actual show, Love at 752, for main stage part of Fringe, which is great. Yeah.
Great. That's so terrific. Now, I'm just going to, before we get into the conversation about your show, which I do absolutely want to hear about, I'm wondering, so lots of people, did you come from Tehran here to work? Did you come because of love? Did you come from a combination of those things?
Actually, there's a combination of all those things because of my dream, my love, and finding a great opportunity to have my own future, my specific own future. So I moved here to follow acting for film and theater. Specifically, and establish my own company, Tough Art Society, which I did actually very lately. I registered Tough Art Society as a professional theater company.
Congratulations, that's a big step.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I appreciate Fringe Festival because Fringe gave me this opportunity to show exactly what I really want, in theater in Vancouver, and generally Canada.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And have you always loved theater and performing? Was that part of you growing up? Or like lots of people have a moment where they go, I can't imagine not doing that.
Yeah, exactly. I started acting in theater since I was 17.
Right.
Now I'm 39, and
dun, dun, dun. Congratulations.
Thanks so much. Yeah, and it's been a long time, and I love theater. That's my true passion.
Yeah. I think I was about 13, and I had a very odd drama teacher, Mrs. Meller. Mrs. Meller spoke like in a very high English accent like that, and I don't know what it was about it, but it kind of it felt like I couldn't do anything else. You know what I mean? Like it was the thing that I was going to do for the rest of my life. Yeah,
exactly. I was like that.
Yeah.
I would always feel like, okay, this is what I really want to do, and that's my job, that's my profession, that's my everything. So I just kept going.
Great. Like and also that's a lot. It's tenacity, isn't it?
Totally.
Because especially if you don't have, I certainly didn't. I think a lot of people don't have families who quite understand what it all means, right? To work in the arts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and theater in Tehran, Iran is a little bit different than here, and here we see more like theater like performance arts, dance, or contemporary theater. But in Tehran, theater is different. Theater is very serious, and we see theaters more like drama mostly, and not specifically. We've got dance and performing arts too, but theater, serious theater is has more voice in Tehran.
Yeah, for sure. I think I kind of grew up in a time too when it was sort of like people really liked either things like very either contemporary classic, but classic work, right? And that was mostly being performed in sort of like the larger theaters, or they liked like musical comedies and things like that. So something like was very mainstream and very accessible. And it was funny because of course I loved that stuff too, because that's what I grew up on. My parents loved musical theater, so I saw a lot of it. But when I went to theater school, I went to an experimental theater school. I think just kind of by chance, actually. I didn't really understand that's what it was. And then it was where you created your own work and you did your own, like, it was more performative experience. Like there was no rules. There were no rules really attached.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I get that.
And also, I guess that the through the 60s and 70s, that kind of deconstruction of sort of a more formal theater model has certainly been taking place.
Yeah, for sure. Because basically, you start with academic works, and besides working in theater, as like experiencing theater in the environment, but. I did just by experience. I didn't go to the university to study theater, but actually I went to private classes. So many times. But mostly I grew up in theater, specifically in theater, and in the venues and all the halls and rehearsal rooms and. Yeah, it was great for me.
Yeah.
And, to get the classical theater, performing arts, dance, everything out of those moments, times of my life. During rehearsing theater, which was good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think sometimes when you're I think the thing about performing arts is that it's experiential. So it's just like you must experience. You can study academically the work of all that stuff, and of course it's always great to be able to analyze or however you want to put it about that kind of stuff. But it's so much more important, honestly, to be in the room and doing it and be with people who are creative and interesting.
Yeah, to be around professional people, theater people, give you something specific in theater to know more about it, to have more ideas what you really exactly have to do for future for your own work, and which is good, but which is you can't learn that in universities or
no, you can't. You do have to find your own kind of. I mean. This is what they used to call it when I was doing it. It was like your own work group. You know what I mean? You have to find the people you really have just like gel with and also push against in terms of what you want to do, right?
Exactly. Right. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I always find it interesting talking to people about how they got into things, and I'm really impressed. I always am impressed with, especially people who are like you who have not been here this long. I'm imagining that perhaps English isn't your first language, maybe it was Farsi or something. And,
Farsi.
Yeah, and so we had Amir Hosseini here from Blackout Theatre. Do you know that?
Yeah. I know him. Yeah. Amir Naeem.
Yeah, and he was talking about. I was talking about like, so here you come. And you're wanting to create your new work, right? And you're in, what is labeled in English space, right? And you are now, maybe your best work is in Farsi, right? Like how you think about things and all of that, and then to translate that into English. How difficult was that for you, or how did you work that?
Yeah, it's been really difficult because I never wrote in English before coming here and before moving to Canada, to Vancouver. So since I came here, I started writing in English, and it was really difficult for me, and all the challenges and difficulties were with me all the time, but I had to do that. I had to experience writing in English because I said to myself, this is your life now. This is your new era, and you have to do this. And you have to write in English and perform in English and act in English.
Wow!
Because you're living here, there's no other choice. Sometimes there's not an opportunity to work in Persian community in Farsi, but I didn't choose that because I wanted to work in kind of, international platform, not just, limited, community. Specifically, for this show, Love at 752, I really wanted all the people, in Canada to hear that,
right?
To hear this, because it's a really important, story. So writing English is difficult, but that's my job.
Yeah. That's a really interesting way of putting it. By the way, I took many years of French. Terrible French speaker. I can read it pretty well, but I'm a terrible French speaker. And I always am in admiration of people who, as adults specifically, come and they're doing like some, especially the written form of it, because it's like, it's so much more formal than just having conversations.
Totally,
like that. I had a friend of mine who did not speak French. Very smart dude, but didn't speak French. And he went to live in Montreal. He was a dancer, went to live in Montreal. And by the time he finished being there, he wrote like a whole... he became an osteopath, and he wrote a whole, I'm going to say it was about 150-word thesis in French. It was remarkable to me, that kind of... It's like nose to grindstone conversation about really trying to figure out how to express like your heart in another language to me.
Exactly. Yeah. And I thought maybe I wouldn't be a good speaker in English, but I could be a good writer in English. There's always another way of expressing yourself, exposing yourself, in art and theater. Gives you a great opportunity to have your own voice in terms of writing, acting, directing. So it doesn't matter what language we speak. It's important to have your own voice and to express your own true feeling. In art.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think that's why we're here. It's certainly not to get paid well, I don't think, but maybe. Yeah. I wish that for everybody. That's not it.
For sure.
But I mean, I think it's I really am not being facetious when I say sometimes it feels a bit like unless I can do that, unless you could do that, unless artists can do that, they're really not fulfilling their purpose. They're not living the authenticity of themselves, right? It's really important to be able to have that outlet.
Yeah, exactly. And that's been my mission when I decided to have my own company in theater company. So I thought, okay, humanity matters for me. And it doesn't matter where I live. It matters to have your own voice, to have your authentic, ideas, and that's my mission, for future to work in theater and just having my own multicultural, ideas, expressing and on stage or on camera. So you're right. I totally agree with you. In terms of having your own voice and authenticity.
And I think inspiration, which is now leading into your thing. Inspiration comes from very different places sometimes. I think you just never really know what is going to compel the conversation about a piece of work. And I guess I would like to know, we're going to start talking about your show, which is important, is like, what was it, perhaps you could give a little bit of a background about what the story was that kind of inspired your piece at the Fringe. That would be great. Love at 752.
Yeah. Actually, Love at 752 is based on the true story of the horrific loss of Flight 752. And 2 years ago, when that attack happened, I was rehearsing another play with my friends, and we heard when we heard that news, we just stopped and we couldn't, continue rehearsing because it was awful. It was horrific news, and I thought, okay. I had to do something special for them, for those victims on that flight. So I decided to sit and rewrite that play. The play was the story of Panda Bears, told by a saxophonist who has a girlfriend in Frankfurt by Matej Wisnik. And it was a really great play, and but a great base too for me to have my own play out of it. So I started adapting that play to Love at 752, and after 2 years I got a new play, like, inspired by that play, by the original one.
Right.
Yes. It's based on that flight, but fictional. It's a poetic, surrealist, a play, which is telling a story about, the love story about between death and a musician. That's basically
well, I mean, I know it's such a, it was such an enormous tragedy. I mean, the Iranian Persian community is not that large in Canada, and there's so many ties to those human beings that were lost in that tragedy. All Canadian citizens, I mean, whether that matters or not, it doesn't really matter, honestly. But very much ties to Canada. I think my question would be, is like, so as you moved into it, I mean, there's lots of trauma involved in all of this. How did you end up dealing with that as you're sort of uncovering the story? And I'm imagining reading, talking to people, it's a very emotional, tragic event. So how did you deal with all of that?
It was really hard. It was really hard because for the first few months, we couldn't do anything. We could just we were just looking for something to heal, finding healings and stuff like that. I thought that writing was my healing, was something that I could find myself, return to a normal life. Because after that tragedy, I believe our life divided to before that flight and after that flight. So after that flight, we needed something specific to get back to a normal life, like pandemic. After COVID. We all were looking for something, to get back to a normal life. It was like that, but more painful. Yeah. So, anyways, I thought writing was the only thing I could find myself, like, okay, this is the best thing to tell my own story about that flight, writing about that tragedy, but in a different way, in a different angle. Because as you said, there was lots of trauma, with that tragedy, and people were devastated of hearing, new things about that flight, about that tragedy, because all the people right now in Canada, people don't like to come and see this show because they're tired of this news, not because of that tragedy, because that's painful. They can't bear it. They can't. It's unbearable. So to me, it was really challenging to have a different story of that flight, of that tragedy. So I started. Thinking of humor in that. So I basically, a good thing about that, the original play was, having humor and, a touch of comedy into it. So I used that humor into my own, version. So I think now this story could help audience to feel relaxed and a little bit, healing, by watching and seeing the show.
Yeah, and I think it's really possible. I think it was so interesting what you said about, when you're going through a period of difficulty, right? Like, we'll say the pandemic. It's like there wasn't a watershed moment where everybody went, oh, it's over. Like, you know what I mean? Everybody in various ways dealt with, like, how do you get back into this common world in which we function, but we've been, separated by, PHO orders or whatever. It's also the same to me. There was no sort of thing. It was everybody to themselves figuring it out.
Yeah.
And I think grief is kind of like that too. I think everybody kind of, it's such a weird animal because it encompasses so many things. It is about, of course, the deep pain of the loss. It's also about, the very things that connect us as humans, which are laughter and a common sort of, idea of things. It's like why you laugh at a funeral, right? At times you just need to have the release of that as well.
Yeah.
And also to remind ourselves that life still coexists with this reality. Which I really find compelling in what you were saying. I think that, and also it's sort of, it must be such a strange situation when you don't get to really have a public, you have all these people who are no longer with you, but you don't have a public forum to have like a funeral or an ending to that, right?
Yeah.
It's just something that you're living with. We all have to live with those kinds of like a pain or loss in our lives, but you're just living with it without any kind of end or resolution to it.
Yeah, totally. And that's why we dedicated this show in last January to honor those victims, and we invited all the families and to this show to come and see this show, to just honor and kind of celebrating of their lives. It was a workshop at the Gaming Center on January 8th, 2022, last January.
Who were you working with, K-Meek? Were you working with, who's the person there at the time?
Now I know she's very Persian too.
Okay, great. Okay, great.
Mina Khatem.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's great. That's lovely. K-Meek's a beautiful theater.
K-Meek was so good, and we had a kind of a great workshop, and it was our first phase of this show. We performed there. It was kind of stage reading, but now it's a fully realized show. We had some of the families there, and they laughed and cried all the time, and it was. And we got great feedback right after the show, and which was a beautiful thing for me, a great gift for me from the families, because it was really risky to have a comedy drama show about that tragedy.
Yeah.
And I was always worried about the families would be angry, upset, or. You don't know what people's reactions are. We didn't know that, but thankfully they were happy after watching the show.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of it is about intention, right? I think people, if you go in with the right intention and the right purpose to why you're telling the story in the first place, I always say it's the why of things. Like why, lots of people can put on a show, but if I don't understand why you like as a,
exactly.
You don't understand why, you're just like, I don't know what I'm watching.
Yeah.
That was my exaggerated conversation today. You know what I'm watching, and I think it's really important that as I said, like our common humanity, that is what we share, and everything is everything in grief. And I think obviously those families saw what your intention was. They saw what you were trying to accomplish, and it's kind of it must be at times just a relief to be able just to not have to to be able to see another side of the experience that is both honoring of it and a different perspective, right?
Yeah, exactly. that's I think what we got out of that show after 5 performances here in Fringe. Now I think, okay, that's been a relief.
Yeah.
That's been, something that I really wanted to do, and I really wanted to get, out of the show. So I'm so glad that I did this, not just for me, for, all, people in the community, in Persian Canadian community, for Canadian,
of course,
because we need all the people to be aware of that tragedy. But it doesn't matter in what way. It matters to have our own voice and tell our own story about the tragedy. Even not just for that tragedy, for everything, all over the world, we need to hear different stories of, victims.
Yeah. And also, it brings, even though, whatever cultural conversations we're having or all those other things, it brings us back into a common ground about humans being humans, and how, trauma affects us and how grief affects us. And we all know that. Like, we all know that. There's no getting away from that in part of the human experience, right? So though the story may not be familiar to everybody, or the circumstances may not be familiar to everybody, when you hear stories that are about our lived experience on, as human beings on the planet, you do, I think it's such a shared common experience, and it's always so beautiful to see it in a different. I always say it's, it's like going around and on the other side of the mirror, right? Like you're always constantly reflecting back to yourself, and it's really nice to see all of a sudden where you can like walk through and have somebody else's experience be for you.
Well said. Yeah, that's true. And as an artist, I think I feel responsible, for all those events. Around me. So I have to do something for them in art. Yeah, I have my own voice, so I use that to tell different stories for people to hear and be aware of what's going on in the world. Yeah. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and I think we need to all be pried out of our own perspectives. You know what I mean? At times, however that needs to be. I say that nicely. I say that not so nicely at times. Because I think, you can also, it's all that other stuff. The other stuff is all, it's not that it's not important that you have your coffee in the morning and you get up and you have a thing and anybody can get really stuck in the minutia of one's day, and then what's happening just in your world, and the tragic moment of where your grant's not, due and you have no time, things like that. But that's not really the important stuff. It's never going to be the important stuff. It's the minutia of our lived experience, but it's not the important stuff. The important stuff is connection and shared love and all those things that keep us coming back every day to try again,
Yeah, exactly. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. I say all those things. I'm going to talk about. I want to just give you one moment to think about this, but
Sure.
But beyond that, now that you've done all the shows at the Fringe, do you see this as something that is an evolving show, or do you see this as a show that you feel like? I mean, I know we're never quite finished with anything, but do you feel like the experience, having been here and being in front of audiences, and what that perspective gave you in terms of people's responses, does that give you more sort of a thought about where you want to take it next?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's as I said before. I think Fringe has been giving me a great opportunity to see my future perspective of life in theater. So after Truth or Dare last year and this year Love at 752, now I believe that I learned a lot of Fringe and having my own shows, even though it's not completely done for this year. But you're right. I know now. Not completely, but I can see what's going on in the future, and what way I could, approach and keep going for my next plays and next shows.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I always hope that shows that come to the Fringe have another life, or have that moment where, as an artist, you get to go, oh, I did that, and then this leads me into this direction. Sometimes it's unexpected, sometimes it's very like a straight line. One never knows, right?
Yeah, totally. Specifically for this show, we're gonna have the next phase of it. We're gonna have. We're trying to go to Toronto for maybe next stage.
Oh, nice. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Or the other festivals, or other cities to have this show for people to see that, and to see this important show. So
have you thought about the Revolver Festival?
Yeah. I've heard about that,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna actually apply for it.
Oh, good, dude.
Yeah.
Dave and Dave are good.
Yeah.
So, but if you want to talk more about that, I know them, and I know the festival a bit.
For
so
sure,
if you
yeah.
want to, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That's cool. Great.
That's cool. Yeah. And and there's another festival in November, which is called Stand Festival.
Yes.
By Amir Naim and Blackout Theater.
Yeah.
Yeah, they asked us to be there.
Oh, great.
In November.
Oh, that's
yeah.
terrific.
Yeah.
I think I'm getting a they've invited me, so I must go.
Sure, yeah.
I can think about it in November. I can't really think about it now.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the question: if you were if I were in an elevator with you and we had 10 seconds or whatever to get to the floor, how would you describe Love at 752? What's your elevator pitch?
Okay.
It's reductive, but I'm going to go for it anyway.
Yeah. It's a love story about death and her client, a musician, which is dead on the flight PS752.
Wow. Cool. I played Death once. It was fun, actually. But
it's a great character.
It's a
honestly.
great character.
Yeah, you should come see it. Yeah.
Yeah. And when is it happening? When's your last show? When's it happening?
Last show, I think the last show was the best.
Yes.
Out of
You heard that? The last show was the best.
5, yeah. Yeah, the last show was the best. I think Love at 752. It was the fifth.
Okay.
Yeah, the fifth was great because we had more audiences.
Right.
And
I heard a lot of buzz around when people were talking about your show.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
Great.
Yeah.
And when is the next show? When is the sixth show?
Tomorrow at 6:30 at the review stage.
At the review stage.
Review
Okay.
stage,
So Vancouver Fringe people, VancouverFringe.com, Love at 752, tomorrow at the review stage, just search Jeff Jen, you'll go right to it. Thanks. And also, I always like to ask, what else are you thinking about in the world? Is there something else that you would like to talk about? Is there something else you would like to say before we conclude this?
I'd like to talk about the fringing.
Yes.
Honestly, because fringing, or being at Fringe Festival is great because you find new friends. There's, simplicity, friendship, lovely people, and you can collaborate. You can, everything's easy, and it's a great opportunity for everyone who thinks they have voice. Mm-hmm. They have their own story to tell. So it's a great opportunity, great time to be there and meet people and have their own shows.
Thank you so much, Majid.
Honestly, thank you.
Oh no, it's been delightful to have you here, and I thank you for plugging the Fringe because we always really enjoy that as well.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for being a part of it this year.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're more than welcome. Okay, so please go see Love at 752. There's a whole bunch of other shows that are happening this weekend that are still there. It's only $15 per show. Come on, it's a ticket. Also, come on down. I think it's supposed to rain, but that is an excellent time to be in a theater watching shows. Just think about it that way. Have a really great day, everybody. I'll be back here tomorrow at noon. And happy fringing.